All right, welcome all. Thanks for showing up to this when you did, when you will, when it is. This is going to be the Sungate Transit 56, July 19th to the 24th, the day after Mercury goes retrograde. And as I'm doing this, I'm doing it a couple days ahead of time. I'm doing it on the 17th, but it's about to be the 18th. So Mercury's about to go retrograde. Now the shadow's been going on for since the beginning of July, and usually I feel that a lot stronger, although I pretend it's not happening. Not that anything needs to happen. It feels like every Mercury retrograde I have similar conversations with people about, you know, oh, hey, it's retrograde. I let them know, and they're like, well, I don't want to be controlled by that energy, right? And none of us do. And I'm going to address that in this particular um, delineation of this transit of gate 56 because this polarity comes up in it. And so I'll get to that later. For right now, I want to share my very uninspired title. There is no good or bad, only shadow makes it so. I mean, that's a play on that famous quote, there is no good or bad, only intellect makes it so. Unless I'm imagining things, there's a quote like that. But this actually has some great depth to it. I was studying a guy, Robert Scheinfeld, years ago. He was one of those kind of NLP guys, but who switched over to something deeper and more profound and powerful. His work, actually, to this day, I credit him with a lot of inspiration and depth. He got into Tantra later on, Tantra in the sense of its deep mysticism, kind of what John Lan Lamsh, oh my gosh, Lam Lash is into right now. He's a guy he's an astrologer, he's in Gnosticism, and he's really into these similar ideas too. I really enjoy it, the synchronicity or whatever it is of when different mystical leaning types arrive at a very similar frame of perceiving the world. Of course, my favorites right now are reality transurfing, human design, Toltec shamanism, obviously the tantric teachings. All that's all very similar. Um, Tibetan Buddhists have very interesting views on reality as well. And of course, I still really like to give a lot of credit to The Light of Egypt by Charles. I'm forgetting his name. Can't remember all the names at once, it seems sometimes. He's such an interesting name too. I know it starts with a B. So, anyways, getting into it, we're going to start off with gate 56. And in the human design chart, and as you guys can see here, gate 56 is right here, right above the throat, um, going in the direction of the Ajna center. And this particular gate, like the gate we're moving out of, which is gate 62, is very much about, well, the archetype is the wanderer. And then the gate that it's leading towards is the gate of ideas. And so this channel together creates a mental channel. And this particular mental channel is going to be when we have active both the 56th and the 11th. And some of you guys have this in your human design. Some of you guys just have one side of it. And when it comes together, it's usually called the channel of curiosity. Sometimes people give it other names. I mean, it's the 56 is the wanderer, the seeker, someone who loves to travel, loves to go to different worlds, within or without. And the other side is the gate of ideas. And so this is someone who has a lot of ideas and who can share them with the collective. There could also be talents in poetry and visual storytelling as well. And in general, it could be called, it's been called the channel the seeker. And these are people just with, great insights, ideas, very, very creative mind, very vivid, very powerful channel. And we're looking at the gate being active, not the full channel. We don't see it active here. Although those of you who have the 11 will feel this activation. And this is telling the story of humanity. This is one of those gates, kind of like the 3313. This is a storyteller channel. And, there's a lot of ideas around storytelling about what it really is, but we're always telling stories. Humans are always telling stories. We just forget that sometimes the story is 10 seconds long, sometimes it's 10 hours long. Time and space are relative conceptual figures here when we tell stories, because the detail that we utilize expands the imagination one way or the other, so that time passing begins to not feel like it's passing. And with this particular gate, there's almost like an impulse to go and find a story or become the story. And so 56 in this way is 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 evokes the concept that nothing in life is ever wasted, that there's no such thing as a wasted experience, or there's no such thing as good or bad or terrible. There's just experience. And in having our experiment here in this realm and our experience in it, a story can always be found in it. And that's kind of the point here, is that this gate very much is about your own story and not qualifying it, judging it, or delineating it fully. As I always like to say, judgment is something that occurs all the time. We're always being judged, whether people say things or not. We feel it when people's thoughts judge, or we feel it when the world judges us, or when we share ourselves with the stage. We're always being judged. We're always being assessed. Hey, that was a really great performance. Hey, that your latest performance was really good. It's it's just funny, the shadows of it are there, right? The implications of that, which is what it is. I mean, it's just I've always said that there's nothing you can do. Like, you're here to share yourself with the world, share your talents with the world, and the world's going to judge you. There's nothing you could do about that. It's going to judge you, and that's it. And we could respond to that judgment or not. Just let the world judge away. I mean, like, the actors have got to be the best at this. I mean, they put themselves on the stage, and you can find no end to criticisms about film or actors and their performances. I mean, do you think any of them read their own criticisms? How could you? It would just be overwhelmed. Reminds me of that experimental TV series that's going on now. A friend told me about, I forgot what it's called, but I guess all these people are just like being taken out of their lives, and these teenagers, and they're living together, and it's some kind of weird dating experimental TV show. And people are like going into the show, and then they're being released back into their lives. But for the whole month or amount of days they're in the show, they don't know what social media is doing. They don't know how they're being judged by social media. They have no clue. And are they even really prepared for it once the show's over, or once that episode's over? Like, they're suspended. They're suspended in time and space. They're living in this magical reality, quote unquote magical reality, magical meta reality. It's just so blatant, this false kind of childhood. This meta world is trying to recreate some kind of fantasy. And we'll get into that because this gate presents a really interesting contrast. And so let's see, some other things I want to share about this gate is It's about how you tell your stories, you know, because we're all telling stories all the time. And, it's so easy to become the victim in the story. And and it's so hard to tell a story without couching your perspective in victimhood or as the victor. I've tried this for years, like, and then I lose sight of it. It's what you're doing is you're trying to share a story. Oh, this happened to me, that happened to me. But you can't describe it any other way because we use a certain type of grammatical logic, a first person grammatical logic, where there's a person that's living their experience and things are happening. So how can you write a story to say this thing happened, the character walked this way, did that? It's so hard to describe, to share a story from not from which the perspective of victimhood, especially when it's first person. Third person, you create a distance between yourself and the character that things are happening to. But it's not that, again, it's not that things are happening to the character. Things are happening. And so you get all these like grammatical, like shortcut frames, perspectives, perceptions that come from like Buddhist and Taoist teachings, that it's like this is happening, this happens, that happens. That attempt to shift the ontological structure of reality from some kind of person to a different perceptual basis, more like a third person. I think the Tao Te Ching plays with that, as other Buddhist texts do, or Eastern texts, I should say, because the Eastern spiritual paths, their writings are way more developed, in the sense of the understanding of transcending the concept of the I, and yet returning to the I too, because it's an interplay. Life's an interplay of the I and the we and the you and, and the third person. So it's paying attention to how you tell your story. I mean, how we share stories all the time. How do we share our stories with the world? From what perspective? We try to present them as neutral as possible without creating a villain or a hero, right? I always love those detective type stories. I mean, Poe created the detective story, and and then Arthur Conan Doyle wrote detective stories in the 20s and 30s. And then there's been a revamping of the style of it with certain novels. Fallen Angel. There was a movie made out of it with Robert De Niro and Mickey Rourke, and it was called. Let's see if that doesn't fail me. It's an amazing film, and the book's excellent as well. And in recent years, there was actually a sequel. Of course, they never made a film out of it, but the specific film. Give me a second. I'm looking at it in my other computer. This is an older film. This came out in the 80s or the 90s. And in the film, I don't want to, for those of you who haven't seen it, I don't want to necessarily completely ruin the ending for you, but it's one of those movies where the character, is presented as the character. And yet, who really is the character? It's kind of like the idea of was the character the villain all along. There's this great, it's like a modern short story or book, where like one of the last lines in the story is, and then I realized that I had been the villain all along. And it's just a flip. It's a narrative twist, but it's also an ontological transcendence. This is all over the stories of Jorge Luis Borges. And it's this like transcendent mystical experience that can happen with literature, where the character realizes that, oh, they're not the hero, they're the villain, or they're not the villain, they're the hero, or they're not alive, they're dead. And these are very transformative mythological stories that share the deeper insight of that huge transition of what humans go through, life and death. One of the biggest transformations that humans go through. And this particular gate evokes that kind of central gravity of beingness in life in terms of where are we? Are we alive? Are we dead? I was joking the other day in my other video. I wasn't necessarily joking, but I was talking about plutonic planes and, the underworld. And I was saying, well, we're already in the underworld. I mean, we're in a body, we're in something that's Saturnized, something that's physicalized. And so the particle is something that's seen. But when it's not seen, it becomes a wave. So is that spirit? Does that represent spirit? I mean, we could use it as a loose metaphor. I don't really look at science too much deeper than, very, very convenient metaphors. But, one could go as deep as one wants with that stuff. At some point, it breaks down because there is no exactingness in life. Nothing is exact. Nothing is precise. Our science is not precise. It breaks down at some point. All the different types of scientific paradigms break down at some point. There is no perfect, precise degree that anyone has been able to utilize to describe reality. Although we've come close, I mean, Fibonacci sequence and crystal code has been a really interesting mathematical formulas that create a contrast between what is human and what is not human, what represents spirit and what represents something more replicating, more imitating, more soulless, right? Those are the contrasts between those two different square roots or mathematical kind of representations of life force and how reality works. But I digress. So let me look at my notes here for the 56. Of course, I've already been looking at my notes, but maybe go a little deeper into this. So let me pause it here because I'm taking too long. Okay, there's another layer here I want to share. And it's real interesting because you guys look down here, the big transition we're going through with the right angle cross destiny of planning shifting to the right angle cross destiny of the sleeping phoenix, that's going to activate the 55 right here. You guys can see that down here. It activates the 55 and the 59 and some other stuff. Now, the 56 up here is a stop codon. It's really interesting. So it's where our genetics is stopped at some point and then continues on in some ways. This is very interesting, these ideas of the stop codons and start codons. And so after the 55 awakens us collectively, then the 56 follows, and then the 60. And the 60 we have activated right now by Earth. So that's not for long. That's in opposition to the sun, which is right now in the Cancer gate of 56. And we're already moving into, after this, we'll be moving into Leo. God, Leo's pretty close, right around. And so 56 it has, different levels of consciousness that it represents, as Richard Rudd went over in his book, Gene Keys. And as you know, from his perspective, all these gates have different frequencies of expression. And sometimes he gets a little, wild with the city interpretation. And he goes a little out there, usually into New Age territory, New Age extremes, which I find a little much to handle at times, but sometimes they're in depth. Anyways, in this particular case, going over the 56, what we're looking at here is there's an awakening that's happening here that will be a continuation of the 55. And the 56, how that will reflect on how will that manifest through the collective. We're gonna see what kind of level of frequency that it operates from at that point. And it's just a real fascinating concept here because the 55 is one of two other stop codons, and that's the 12 and that's the 33, and the particular ring, and there's about 22 different rings in our genetic structure. And these I'll go over one day because these are very interesting. And this one's the ring of trials. And so none of these stop codons are connected to amino acids. So this one's not connected. And then, so right now at this time, with this being activated, this stop codon, we have one start codon that's active. Well, the main start codon that's activated, and that's being activated by Pluto, and that's the 41. And of course, we can't see the 41 here because I didn't allow it to be copied. You can almost see it, but it's down here at the bottom on this side. And so the 56 is about, as I was saying, it's about wandering in this physical world externally. So it's more about using our sense perceptions to perceive new variations of the physical world around us. In other words, us being kind of star lost in all the stars of like this wondering kind of reality, this Saturnian world, and seeing all that's in it. And it has to do on some level with, being kind of in a state of excitement by all the possible distractions around us of modern man. We have all the computers, we have all the social media, we have all the images, the black mirrors, right? We have all the ways of speaking to each other through all these layers and layers of tech. And all this is just, living as Tool said in their early 90s song, overstimulation numbs me, but I wouldn't have it any other way. And so, it's overstimulation, it's the addiction of allowing our senses to be filled with the material world. But ironically, it's also, the senses which stand for where our energy leaks are in our body. I mean, if we're observing something for too long a period, I mean, our energy is leaking out. And it can leak out through any of our sense perceptions, through our smell, our taste, our touch. We can indulge in all of those. And then in indulging in any of those senses, we lose a true sense or a true awareness of the quality of our experience. Because then everything becomes a drug, which impedes any fuller understanding of reality or appreciation or gratitude of reality. Senseless overindulgence indeed numbs the human soul, and perhaps numbs it to a point of non-existence, not existing. And so know that your senses in themselves are kind of holes in your field where energy leaks out. And remember to go inside, into meditation, into those centers, into feeling the sensations within you as you meditate and being with your breath so you can move away from those sense perceptions. Of course, these days we have the opposite extreme, where all the gurus are doing the dark room meditations, for 40 years, well, 40 days, not the 40 years like the old mystics and heretics used to do in caves, which perhaps is, the main solution, the real solution at some point, because with this panopticon of being seen by everything, you can't really be seen in a cave unless there's something else in there with you. And so this is just another way, this gate, especially this gate of the wonder of hiding oneself in the mask of the materialism of the world. So it's like you're wearing a bag over your head, and that bag is material reality. So it's also a hiding, it's also a being lost. And with this comes, some new age ideas, the manifestation ideas that we create our own reality. Like no one ever seems to really understand very clearly that we do not create our own reality. All we do is influence the frequency of our own reality by our altitude or our attitude. I like to say altitude, but our attitude, if we're in a victim state of consciousness, then we perceive things as happening to us and we come from a place of disempowerment. It's so easy to do that. I mean, first person narratives of the ego. How else can you describe it? And so the world becomes rendered that which is to blame. The outer world becomes the kind of distracting agent of offense. But there's also an inner distraction, an inner agent of offense. Because, I get that a lot, especially as an astrologer, human design analyst, like, oh, you're blaming the planets, you're blaming what's out there. And I always like to remind, like, the planets are not out there. They're in here as well. And they're just rays of light. They're just frequencies that are within and without us that are in our biofield. And they're frequencies that are shifting and changing all the time. And sure, we don't have to give agency. We can say, okay, let's not give agency to these planetary lights, which seem to be happening outside of us. Okay. But then the opposite extreme is to imply that, yeah, I control my own reality. My inner world creates the reality outside. I mean, is there truth in that? Sure, there's truth in that. I mean, to a degree. But is that not also a fantasy? It's like closing your eyes and putting your fingers in your ears and closing your mouth and there's no planets happening, there's no transits happening. It's just what I present here is just the aspect of understanding that once you know you're being initiated by Uranus entering gate 20 in your human design chart, or entering Gemini on your ascendant or in your seventh house. Once you know that, then you can let it go. That's the initiation. It's just an opportunity. It's an initiation of the energy. It's a shifting frequency. How can you respond to that frequency? It's not let me go run and hide. If it's an eclipse, it's run and hide. And, you know, that's just the facts. And I don't know what else to tell you if you don't think that's so. If you would imagine an eclipse is not happening, that's that's what you want to do. But it's it is what it is in the sense of where we go through initiations all the time. Now we don't need the numbers necessarily to know that. We can feel it. Again, these are frequencies. For those of us that don't chart the sky clock, we know that these changes are happening. We feel them. And when an astrologer or design analyst says, hey, like I did today to a coworker, I said, ever since July 7th, Uranus has been going in Gemini. Oh, no wonder I've been feeling that way since that day. Well, okay, yeah. I mean, this falls to that whole concept of do we need language? What do we need language for if we feel the frequency of what is occurring? Is language truly a fallen aspect of human beingness? Don't we ruin things by communicating, by putting things in the words? Aren't things easier when we don't put things in the words? Don't words change their meaning so much so that the dictionaries cannot keep up? Yeah, I mean, meanings, definitions, names change all the time. And the language of astrology itself is a symbolic alphabet, a symbolic clock. And we astrologers and human design analysts, we're translators. We're translating this information. If we're doing, we're doing a good job, we're translating it. If we're not, then it sounds like we're judging and putting things in the boxes and blaming planets and cycles. But the work is to translate what is, because it's a clock. It's just a clock. And we found the map for it. And so we can map out any day, future, present, past, any moment. And so we're attuning to a fine balance between blaming that which seems to be outside of us and that which is inside of us, which can also become a distraction if we create our own fantasies and become fooled by our own inner fantasies. That could be rough. And so the 56, in essence, utilizing that energy in a way that can bring us to a higher state of consciousness or a higher state of awareness, or as I like to say, a stronger sense of central balance between opposing poles. Then it's about self-discipline. And on some degree, it is about not paying too much attention to the external, not giving too much power away to the internal, but finding the self-discipline to complete what you need to complete when you decide to complete it. Evidence of operating in your body correctly is being on time. The sky clock recognizes a temporal certitude that humans live under, and that is the recognition of time and space. Time and space being essentially no different from each other. They each apportion a space to each other, and that apportion is the same space, just splitting it. And so, if one has the gate 56, of course they love to travel, but is it correct to travel every single day for months and months and months? No, there must be a home to return to. We're always going somewhere and then we're returning home. In a way, the musicians know it best, especially in singer-songwriter material, where the lyrics will turn into the concept of going home. And everyone knows it's so much deeper than that. It's not going home to your house or where you live or your spouse. It's deeper than that, right? It's going home. Not here in this realm, somewhere else, wherever that home is. It's a feeling, it's a sense, it's it's a memory that we can't quite grasp all the time. And so it's coming to an understanding of life that as much as we're here to enjoy all the fun that we can have, all the different cool things we can do in this reality, it's also important. There's also times to be serious and say the truth and say what is, no matter how uncomfortable things can be. And this is the dichotomy I was talking about. It's, sometimes things are fun, sometimes things are serious, sometimes things are good, sometimes things are bad. But really, what I want to come to is that things are as they are. But we get so caught up because everyone wants to hear, your response. Hey, how are you doing? Oh, yeah, I'm doing great. Oh, it was a great day. Oh, and everyone feels so happy. As if happiness is a state that can be persisted in and that we can just live in that state of happiness every second of the world. And when we don't, it's bad or something. It's not laudatory. It's not, oh, let's just, let's put that badness under the rug and let's be happy again. Yeah, yeah, let's just be happy. Fucking nonsense. All great heights come with corresponding depths. The more you want to experience happiness, the more pain you will experience. That's inevitable. And why is that? Because the true essence of life is just what is. It's just what is. It's not good, it's not bad. I remember for a week I tried to not utilize any synonyms of good or bad in response to all the humans in my field for that particular week. I remember I was doing that practice. I was doing one of Robert Scheinfeld's trainings, and oh wow, it was so difficult. You know, you get it everywhere. I mean, the worst is at the supermarkets, where, hey, how are you doing today? Oh, I'm doing. Or my famous, what I like to say, what makes them really uncomfortable, I would always say something like, oh, I don't know, we'll see. Or I don't know yet. I just woke up. I just got up not too long ago. I'm not sure yet. I can't quite qualify the day yet, which is kind of a weak excuse, right? I'm still implying that I'm going to qualify it at some point. But really, it's just what it is, right? Oh, the day is. The day is. And I'm satisfied with that. And as a generator, satisfaction is important. So what I'm getting at here is at some frequency, at some level of just, I don't know how I'd say it, just appreciation for being alive, just for love of life. Love of life in the sense of all its coloring, whether suffering or not suffering or having a great time or having a terrible time or saying things that, that need to be said, but, could be uncomfortable. Despite all these challenges that come up in our descriptions of life, can we actually just communicate in such a way to just acknowledge that every fucking moment is incredible and beautiful and loving, regardless of some horror that has occurred or not occurred, or that we imagined is occurring. And then so it goes deeper. I mean, this is kind of what I'm talking about now is like the 56 can apportion a kind of self-discipline, but on some level, once you've reached the state where you're not playing in the realm of good and bad, then there is no need to self-discipline because everything is just what it is. It's just whatever it is in that moment and nothing more than that. It's not serious or it's not fun. It's just the energy of that moment. It's almost like imagine an astrologer, a human design analyst presenting a day that's arriving and saying that the day is going to be the energies of, for the, of course, for the symbolized, for those that are not excluded through lack of definite definition or nomenclature, right? Astrological terms. Because I can't even do it right now. Like, what am I going to say about tomorrow? Tomorrow's well, now it's the 18th. So tomorrow's the 19th. Sun's going to go into gate 56. Gate 56 is about the wondering the world, wondering through our sense perceptions. And it's also about getting tired of that and wondering inside of us. where the heart is, where the breath is, and feeling that, not allowing our energy to leak out through all our sense perceptions, and being with our shadow and feeling it, experiencing that, and then going back out into the world and experiencing the day as it is. And that's the challenge of July 19th through the 24th. There are many planets retrograde: Saturn, Neptune, Mercury. And the retrograde doesn't mean to go hide, it just means to reassess. It just means that, hey, we don't need to be so busy right now. We can just actually chill and just kind of maybe take a look around. What's that great Ferris Bueller quote? If you don't take a look, no, take a look in life, take a look around every once in a while, or you just might miss it. Hope I didn't butcher it. 80s film. All right. I think that's enough. I've heard enough of my own ranting. Hope you guys enjoyed that. And Gate 56, July 19th to the 24th. And then we'll be entering into Leo, and we'll enter into the first gate for Leo as the fire's turned up. And that'll be in opposition to Pluto. So at the end of this particular sequence, right around the 24th, it's going to be a pretty intense new moon. Hopefully I'll make time to go over that in another video. Okay, the best to you all.